Tell us a little bit about the album and how it came about.
Well, I was getting ready to embark on a trip to Ireland and England and France to play a few shows, but mostly to work on my TV show. And COVID hit. We were leaving March 21st to come over there for about 8 weeks, and hit in the face totally. And I was going to make a new record, but I was going to do it like probably right now after I got everything done from that trip. And I moped around for a few days, and I realized I have this studio setting here. I have friends all over the world who are willing to record in their studios and send me their tracks. And let's use this time and use this energy, and let's just cut to the chase. And so I was looking for some inspiration, and I'd already written a few songs, and I looked at them, and they were all based on movies I thought I was going to make when I was a filmmaker. And I just dove in. I started pulling out those scripts. I started looking at those ideas, and I said, well, how can I turn these into songs? And, it's probably the only movies I'll ever make of them. It costs a lot less money, and it takes a lot fewer people. So, I did it. I just buried myself for maybe 2 months, did nothing but that.
Now, you have, as you mentioned, a background in film to a certain extent, and you got your band. Are there other things that you do as well?
Well, I'm a television producer, and I have a radio show on an NPR affiliate that gets picked up every now and then across the country. And, I think as an artist in general, you have to be a jack of all trades and be able to do a lot of things to survive in these times. I'm not just COVID, just the way the industry is set up. So, I'm lucky that my fallback plan is something just as interesting as what I do for my passion.
Do you still feel you're searching for your niche in life, or do you feel you found it?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Do you still feel you're searching for your niche in life, that thing you're kind of here to do, or do you feel you found it?
David.
Is that too early in the morning for you? It's
no,
7 a.m. in the morning.
I haven't been to bed. I haven't found my niche, but I'm totally happy with who I am. That's a big change. That happened when I got cancer a few years ago. I think that brings things into focus, mortality. So I'm happy with my path. I don't know that I've found my niche. No.
Now let's come back to the album for a minute. It's called My Favorite Los Angeles Restaurant, and in your promotional material, one of the things it says is your music goes from a whisper to a shout, which is true. It's a very unique kind of, I don't know if it's sound or your voice, but something very unique about it. Is that something that's kind of unfolded over the years?
Yeah. I was never comfortable being the singer in the bands I had. I was always a guitar player, but a lot of times I felt like it was maybe my role because I was writing the songs. I grew up with that DIY mentality. So I thought, well, why don't I just do it? And it's something I developed by basically becoming vulnerable, with my stuff, allowing myself to put myself out there. And once I totally is the wrong word, but once I became comfortable in my own skin, it was a lot easier to find those peaks and valleys, and nothing bores me more than anything kind of in the same place. Everything's kind of in the same loudness. And so I try to approach everything as I get into character for each song. I don't want to say I'm acting at all, but I have to get in that mindset and just vomit it out.
Now you're based, I know you're in Indiana now. I know you were born there. Are you actually based there?
Yeah, we're sitting here in Petersburg, Indiana right now, population 2,000.
That I know. Is that where you are most of the year anyway, or are you?
Yeah, it's where we live. When we're able to travel, I'm everywhere. I've been in every state. I've been all over doing music and doing television or movies. So it's easy to live here. You know what I mean? I having lived in New York and Los Angeles and Seattle, the expense. What it's like to be in big cities, and you end up having to work so much that you can't get any work done. And you know, living here, the mortgage is within reason. The car payment is within reason. You know what I mean? It doesn't take quite the thousands of dollars it does extra just to breathe the air.
Now, I have a little bit of experience of having lived in small town Iowa for a couple of years, which I imagine is not a million of miles away from the upbringing. Iowa.
Oh, yeah. It's very similar.
I imagine it's very similar. Did that kind of, I suppose you'd call it a country background, give you a firm foundation in life?
Yeah, I would say what it did, you know, I would say I'm a center left person, maybe a little more left than center, but I'm very pragmatic, you know, because you see the realities of rural life, you know, getting up to milk the cows and work on the farm at 4 a.m. or going to the factory and still coming home it's just a community-based thing, I would say. I mean, my wife and I were actually discussing this yesterday, that, you know, even when we lived in New York, we felt like we lived in a little town. You know, you find your own village wherever you live. But living here, there's so much more breathing space until you bump into them. And I really think it gives you a certain respect for maybe their privacy, and in a bizarre way, you know everything about them simply because they're the only people you see. So small town life is weird. It's not like the Hallmark movies, you know, it's not like that at all. We all don't get together and rally around a Christmas tree and hold hands and say, oh, this is family. It's not like that at all, but it's definitely a respect for people who get up at 4 a.m. and work their butts off. But you know what the beautiful thing is, David, is that I've lived in New York and Los Angeles, and people do the same thing there. People are just people, and you know, you find your community where you are.
Was it a bit of a culture shock going to a big city for the first time?
Well, being in the Midwest, we traveled a lot. You know, my dad was an educator. He was always wanting to take us places. So we went to Chicago and places like that a lot. And Chicago is a spectacular city. I would say culture shock in the sense that the beauty of it is you get to be around people, you know, like somebody from Ethiopia. We don't have anybody from Ethiopia in Petersburg, Indiana. And just getting to know those cultures and have the opportunity to go eat the food that you don't get to eat, that was the shock. And also being to see any movie that you've ever read about or see a band who, you know, is from France, and all of a sudden they're playing in New York City. Of course they are. Why not? They don't come to Petersburg, Indiana. So that was the shock. It was overload because you wake up, you know, New York City lives from 9 to 5, and that's 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. You know, it just flips the dial, and the energy and inertia from being in a city like that just carries you. And once you live there, that stays with you, I think.
Right. My favorite question to ask somebody who's over 50, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
You know, I turned 60 on January 5, and I've kind of planned something for that about being 60. And it's funny, you know, I think back when I was 30 and I would see somebody who's 59 and I'd say, man, they're old. Really, really old, like their life's at an end. And nobody I know who's my age is near the end, you know, in their minds. I would say in 10 years that I'll probably be hanging out with you somewhere. You're buying me a beer and we're talking about, remember that time we met on the internet and we listened to some of your songs, and I go, yeah, man, that was a lot of fun. I'm glad we met. That's what I hope. I hope I'm still doing what I'm doing and meeting interesting people.